Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between too. Always love everybody else in between. Goddamn, Steph Curry dropped 41 on him. This is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. We got a lot of stuff to get through, man. It's been technically 24 hours. Yeah. Oh, man. Huge night. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. NFL, NBA, MLB. Talk about the MLB for literally 10 seconds. I almost had a story that was longer about the NHL than Major League Baseball. Other stuff going on too, man. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Doing all the segments this week, so that means we're doing hydration breaks as well. I don't even think I filled up my water bottle before I started this show, so we're about to go through a journey. I will say this, that means that we're probably going to have less of my allergies making me sneeze and stuff like that in between segments, because I will have 2 breaks throughout the course of the show, and we're gonna keep it under 2 hours. We're gonna power through this. We're predicting every game for week 8 of the NFL, getting winners and all that kind of shit like that. If you're wondering why I'm doing the stream so late, that means that you're up just a tad bit too late too, buddy. It's midnight. And technically that means that it's Saturday, but I need this for my own personal well-being to get back on track to do the show. I was trying to do some promo stuff while the theme song was playing, but kind of ran out of time there, so I'm gonna do it right now. But we are gonna take it from the top here in a second. Let's see. Where is that stupid tweet? There we go. Big Candy Bars Only is the name of the episode today, obviously in homage to Halloween. Would like to say I'm a big supporter of Halloween, like as a concept and for the people in general. But facts are, man, facts are, your boy, I'm not popping like, I wouldn't say I'm not popping like that. My friends don't do Halloween parties, essentially. Like, they're past that age where they go out to Halloween parties on a regular basis. Almost every single one of my friends, except myself, owns a house, as you can tell, for an assortment of reasons. Next time you guys see me, I will have better glasses on. I bought new glasses yesterday. They are supposedly in the mail and on the way to my house right now, like as we speak, along with a bunch of other shit that I spent money on that I shouldn't have, be honest with you. I bought a bunch of Seahawks gear because I've been in search of a certain type of workout shirt, which I have worn on this podcast before, but I will not be, we'll see. The ones I have now, they're these weird, like, stretchy dry fit material, and I actually learned what company makes them. They just don't sell the shirt without branding on it. They make shirts exclusively for NFL players, so if you have any idea how I can get those on a regular basis, let me know. They're called Nike Pro Breathe shirts, and I actually stumbled across 2 different shirts that are made of the same material. I found them at the Nike clearance store, which, if you're not familiar, I've talked about it on this podcast before. There's only like 7 or 8 of these stores across the country. They are specifically, I should get out of the starting window when I'm doing stuff like this. Anyway, we'll take the show from the top after I finish rambling about this. But they're called Nike Pro Breathe shirts. They are, I wish I had a picture of it, because I screenshot the photos of them all the time, because I try to hit them on Google Lens to see if I can get them to pop up someplace that's not eBay, because I'm trying to, like, I go to the Nike clearance store. Everything there has a tag on it. It is a store. It sounds exactly like what it is. It's the last stop before I guess stuff goes back to the Nike factory to be like redistributed or destroyed or something, and it's everything that you can possibly think of. Like, if you ever see me, like this shirt, I actually got this shirt from the Nike clearance store, and if you look this up on the internet, it costs like $30 or $40 or something like that, and I got this shirt for $5 at the Nike clearance store. If you're ever in Houston and you ever want like a really if you ever want like a killer deal or anything like that, hold on a second, like Nike blue shirt, trying to see what the price is on it. Smiley face. Trying to see what the price is on it. I can't even find it anymore. Oh, here it is. Is this even at the regular site? Yeah, so right now it's on sale for $13. I got it for way cheaper than that. And this shirt came out like years ago. I bought this shirt I bought this shirt basically when it was brand new for Nike, and I bought it for like I want to say 70% off because let's be honest. So I guess we talk about this. This is like a fashion thing overall before we get into sports. So when you talk about like buying materials and shit, the colors that things are available for in certain cities matters a lot. So you're gonna have like your white, your blacks, your red, your blues, and sometimes your yellows. Even though I don't think a lot of people like rocking yellow, just like bright ass yellow or whatever. Pink is becoming more prominent because guys got like less childish, I guess, and also breast cancer awareness is becoming a thing that we really speak up about on a regular basis in terms of like fighting it and donating towards those causes and stuff like that. So pink is actually a color that has like a month where it skyrockets in its value. Also in February. Anyway, where those colors are placed is like massively important in terms of like how well they sell, right? Like if you're talking about the Ravens, if you're in Baltimore and you're trying to sell a certain shirt, selling a red shirt is not going to sell as well in Baltimore as a purple shirt would, because there's a Baltimore Ravens town, right? And you may think that's dumb, but it actually matters a lot, and that's why so many colors are super generic for professional football teams and professional teams in general in America. They want colors that, one, you can get like straight out the factory. They don't want stuff like what the Chargers wear on a pretty regular basis, which is like the powder blue things. The type of yellow that the Chargers wear is like pretty generic yellow, but as you can tell, like their colors are some of the more unique within the realm of professional sports, whereas like other teams tend to go with like stuff that is semi-generic or semi-off-the-rack kind of colors and everything, and they just put their logo on top of it because those are, one, easier to manufacture because they're such high prevalence already, and then two, like you don't have to like hunt down a certain Pantone and all that kind of jazz that goes with it. So those certain colors sell well in certain markets, which means that there's like stuff that sits on the shelves in every store that sells Nike gear just because that city doesn't really rock with that color like that. And at some point, you got to get and at some point, that stuff has to move on from the shelves because new stuff comes in every single season, right? Like every fall, spring, summer, all that kind of stuff like that. It has to rotate off, and they can't just like throw it in the trash. Some places do, like what is it? I think it's Louis Vuitton. What is it that man, there's some rapper who used to say this phrase all the time, but he was basically like, yeah, man, so I'd much rather something about like, I think it's Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton would rather destroy their product than mark it down, because the second that you mark it down, that becomes what it is valued in people's minds, and all they do is wait until the price drops and then buy the thing instead of buying it at the 100% markup price, and then you can't justify having all the glitz and the glamour with a lot of stuff because like some of these fashion pieces that people make last forever or like last a pretty long period of time, right? And so if you just wait until the price drops, you end up getting a really good deal. So with Nike, very similar, but Nike has contract obligations. Nike has a lot of contract obligations. They're constantly changing their styles every single year because they want to attract the eye of new people, right? So they have stuff like they're constantly shifting stuff on shelves. It's very similar. I would say, imagine like if you're a cereal company and you design like a slightly different cereal with a different recipe every single year. Now, we all know that there are cereal companies that make like Lucky Charms. They have different things that go with the Lucky Charms, right? Like they have different, like there's specialty versions of Lucky Charms that exist. There's same thing with Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like there's French Toast Crunch that was on a run for a little while there, and then people just didn't really fuck with it like that to make it a permanent brand. But imagine if you're a cereal company and your whole business thing is that you slightly change your cereal every single year, flavor-wise. Well, if the stuff from the last thing, the stuff from last year doesn't sell, you can't just get rid of it. You got to send it somewhere else for it to be sold, and especially if it's going to last a little bit longer. So they're trying to get money off stuff that people didn't buy initially in this one area, and maybe if they rotate it to another area, people will buy it. And that's what the Nike clearance store is essentially. Like that's why things end up in the outlets severely priced down, because there's I mean, let's be real. There's dudes out, like we all know dudes who. And I say dudes, and the same thing goes for women. There are people who believe that like there's just colors they're never gonna buy. Like me personally, like as I've gotten older, especially when it comes to basketball, not to say that I try and wear the most boisterous colors possible. I'm okay with wearing like stupid vibrant colors. Like I wear my base basketball shoe is a Kyrie 2 that is teal. That I actually enjoy wearing a lot. Some of the best the only low top basketball shoe I've probably ever trusted in the past like 15 years. I used to be one of those kids who used to wear low top shoes all the time, but I guess I have weak ankles or something like that. Essentially, like I used to roll my ankle a bunch and it would stop me from being able to play basketball. So I just started wearing high top sneakers and it didn't really matter that much to me. My dad and my mom had no problem buying me high top sneakers because they thought those looked better to begin with. But I actually like wearing low tops because of the ankle flexion that you're able to pull off and all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, the Kyrie Flywires, the Kyrie 2 Flywires actually, for me, are the best like low top I've ever worn, and actually the only low top I've ever felt comfortable playing in to be TBH. If you follow me on Instagram at TheAstonForever, I actually wear them all the time on there. And that's why I was like slightly bummed when Nike severed their contract with Kyrie, because I was like, hopefully the Kyrie technology doesn't go anywhere. And most likely what's going to happen for your boy, I've mentioned this before and I'm excited for it. Them Kyrie prices going to drop down. They're going to be trying to get rid of them things fast, and I'll take them in whatever color they got them in. I think the Kyries are some of the best shoes that Nike's ever made, to be honest with you, man. I play basketball, and I know that's like counterintuitive to a lot of people who buy Nike and who buy Jordan stuff. I actually play sports in the shoes that they make so how they play as basketball shoes actually matters a lot to me. Anyway, how did we get on that conversation? Something about like how the clearance store works. Anyway, whatever. Let's start the show. I feel like I don't think I've thoroughly explained what I was talking about before. But yeah, I get a bunch of cheap stuff at the Nike clearance store, which is like 30 minutes from my house, and I've actually gotten a lot of the stuff that people compliment me on from the Nike clearance store. And it's not just stuff that's in weird colors. It's all kinds of things that just flat out don't sell. Like, for instance, like when major events happen that are only for a certain period of time. For instance, the Olympics. I have a Team USA jersey that has no name on the back of it. It's just a generic Team USA 0 jersey. It's a 3XL. It actually fits, which is the surprising part. Because your boy fat. There's no question about that. Anyway, I got one of those jerseys that is like straight up Nike Team USA jersey that you buy off the website for $120. I bought it for $40 because I waited for it to drop down, and now it's like Team USA still wears the same style of Nike Team USA gear, and I got it for like 40% or 70-80% off or whatever, because you just wait a little bit, and Nike is willing to take any money you give them, because at the end of the day, remember, every single clothing store that you go to is their markup is insane. It's insanely high, and their markup is really stupid high, and they're making a lot of money off you. Speaking of which, let's talk about making some money. Let's talk about geek news. Geek news off the top. If you're unfamiliar with this segment, it is about some nerd shit that happens that I found very, very entertaining. If I start, I will say this: I had a nosebleed before this show started, and I have no idea if that's going to reappear or anything like that. So if I start bleeding randomly, you know why. There's nothing wrong with me just randomly getting nosebleeds. I'm at a period of time right now where the Houston weather is changing, and it is affecting my overall existence as a human being. So Cube Doom is the name of the Geek News segment for this week. If you are not a big video game person, I'll explain something that goes along with this. So Cube Doom, if you can't see it, I'll make it a little bit bigger. But this is Spider Cube, which I'll explain this. The new Spider-Man game has come out. It's called Spider-Man 2. It is centered around Miles Morales, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, it's a Spider-Man game, one of the most popular superhero games that's out there in the world. Always centers around Spider-Man because it has the perfect array of puzzle solving, level hopping, open world aspect of it, and Spider-Man has some powers that are really fun to mimic in a video game. The fighting style that he utilizes, where he's just super agile, goes from person to person, has a good amount of power. Spider-Man is like one of the most powerful Marvel cinematic or just Marvel characters possible, and it was revealed like a couple years ago that Spider-Man basically like pulled his punches every single time he's ever struck anyone ever, and the only time he has never pulled his punches is when he fought Kingpin one time after I think he killed Aunt May, and he was just like, the first time I'll ever hits somebody full force and he kills Kingpin, surprisingly to no one. But yeah, he's like super strong. Anyway, the game is really fun. It's got probably one of the biggest video game followings for a superhero ever, other than Batman Arkham Asylum and the Arkham Knight series and stuff like that. A lot of people put those on the same tier level, and they're like elite level tier games. Anyway, there's a glitch in Spider-Man 2. Well, there was a glitch in the Spider-Man 2 game that recently came out where if you play for a long period of time, you render into a white cube, and you can actually go on Twitter and type in Spider Cube, and or you can look up articles where you just type in Spider Cube into Google, and it will show you video clips of people playing as like a little white cube. It actually happened to the point where the only reason that people were able to find out about this glitch is because they're like people who are massive fans of the Spider-Man franchise, and they play for such long periods of time. Like, Spider-Man is developed into a game that very similar to the Batman Arkham Knight series. When it drops, it takes over Twitch, it takes over YouTube streaming, it takes over TikTok lives, where people are just going through playthroughs and people are watching them play through the game and seeing different ways to be able to attack different things. There are people who are in the comments who know what is going to happen, but the game was so entertaining to them that they actually watch somebody else play, even if they're like actually better than that person typically at the game. But yeah, like it's one of the most niche things in the world as of right now. But if you look at the Spider-Man Miles Morales version of the game and go on like TikTok, go on YouTube, go on Twitch, there's a collection, I would say a large collection of people, because I've seen it a bunch of times. There's a collection of people who play trance music while they are doing swing combinations for Miles Morales. Like, while they're in the game doing the Miles Morales swing combinations, they have 1,000,001 different suits that you can select from, which means they have like different web shooters and different styles that they play with. They also have this ability where you're in the game, you can slow time down, zoom in, and they match it up with the music, and it's like a soothing, like lo-fi kind of deal, kind of like hypnotic type trance that these guys who are people who are on the internet are creating with this game, and that's what makes it so massively popular too as well. It's a very niche thing that you would never expect from a game about Spider-Man, but it is actually like semi kind of soothing, and some of these people have turned it into like a way for them to make money on the internet, surprisingly enough. So the internet and geeks are amazing, but that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here. Cube Doom is about how the most recent patch to Spider-Man 2 has removed the Spider Cube glitch. Spider Cube had gotten like to the point where it wasn't people making fun of the game, it was people who were like disappointed it was no longer a part of the game as a whole. And that was the funnier part to me personally, that a glitch, because very rarely does a glitch become this kind of popular anymore. Usually when you have like high-end games where people are paying like almost $80 per person or something like that to be able to watch the game or be able to play the game, there is a lot more like upset about people releasing partially completed games, which is like a pretty frequent thing that happens in the time we live in right now. That's one of those things. It's one of those things. This is an example of a glitch that gets a cult following to the point where the geeks who play Spider-Man 2 didn't want it to be removed. So I am only left to believe that Spider Cube is going to be in the next what is the final supposedly final edition of the Spider-Verse franchise, which is Beyond the Spider-Verse. I'm assuming all the different Spider people across all the different universes are going to make another appearance, and I'm almost like 90, because the people who do the Into the Spider-Verse thing, they already have shown a propensity to like really show appreciation for what the fans do to the piece of art that is Spider-Man, because it would not have gotten to this point without their kind of level of support, right? Like the Spider-Verse movies would not be what they are if people already didn't like Miles Morales as a character, which they do in the show, which they do in real life, right? There's that thing that we saw with Into the Spider-Verse, where there's a young man who does Lego versions of movie trailers, and he literally does stop motion Lego actions of movie trailers, and they brought him in to do the Lego Spider-Man scene in Into the Spider-Verse, right? This is right. I don't know why I pointed that way, because the camera. This Spider Cube thing is like right up the alley of the people who work on Into the Spider-Verse and do like such a fantastic. They did the Spider-Verse series is easily better. The Spider-Verse series has done something amazing for one, animation, and two, just superhero movies in general, because I think obviously there's a massive fatigue when it comes to Spider-Verse people, just Spider-Man, superhero movies in general, and Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Verse in general, all three of them, when they come out, seem like they're going to be something that is set apart from all of them, right? Like held in a different pantheon, for an appreciation of the art style that's available and the type of acting, the messages behind every single episode, the appreciation for the different cultures that are being embraced, and obviously like an appreciation for dumb things that are amazing because geeks love them. So shout out RIP to Spider Cube. He's done. He or she, they, inanimate object, done for now. Would not be surprised if the Spider-Cube makes a reappearance a little bit later on, either in the games or, like I said, into Beyond the Spider-Verse. So that's what we got for Geek News. A glitch rose to the... By the way, this is an example. That picture that's over here, that's an example of like how big this got. Somebody made a fake comic book cover of the Spider-Cube. That's what that is. I got that off the internet. Shout out to geeks everywhere. They make some of the smallest things so fun. Anyway, moving on to best of the best. If you guys don't know, this show is billed as the best and the worst that sports has to offer every single week. So we have segments called best of the best and worst of the worst, which best of the best is the best thing that I saw in sports. I will say this, one of these stories is... it happened a couple of weeks ago, but I feel like it's important to bring it back to talk about this. So the segment is called Miles and Miles this week. There are two very prominent Miles in the world of sports. Miles Jack, his mom Lasanja, have combined together to buy majority ownership. So they run the thing, isn't it? They run this thing out here. They don't take votes and all that kind of stuff from other people, right? They are majority owners of the Allen Americans, a team that I had not heard of until Miles Jack claimed ownership of them, so it's already popping off in terms of the Q rating. If you're wondering where they're based out of, the Allen Americans are based out of Allen, Texas. If you're from Texas, you know exactly where that is. That's just outside of Dallas. It's the city that Kyler Murray is from, and it's bunch of rich people, be honest with you. I live in Houston, and they used to have the Houston Aeros, and the Houston Aeros were located in Willowbrook, which is like kind of a ritzy part of town. So it was always kind of funny. They were like the Houston Aeros, but they were like an hour outside of Houston, kind of. Anyway, same thing with this. They're called the Allen Americans. Their logo is a red, white, and blue Dallas Cowboys star, and I think there's something, like I listened to a podcast where Miles Jack was talking to two guys who cover the league that the Allen Americans are in, which is ECHL hockey, which is apparently AA hockey. I thought it used to be called junior hockey, which maybe that's only the third highest level, so like when it's AAA, maybe it's junior hockey or something like that, but the Allen Americans are a AA affiliate for the Ottawa Senators, an NHL team. So they do have a connection to an NHL team. So there's a lot of hype around, like, there's something to build off there. They're not just like a random team trying to start itself up out of nowhere, right? They're connected to the NHL, so they're going to get some level of support, and people want them to succeed on a lot of different levels, because the better the Allen Americans do, the better the Ottawa Senators do, in theory, in the long run. That's how development works, right? Myles Garrett also became a minority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers the other day. I don't know when it was officially announced, but I saw this come across a couple days ago. My friend sent it to me on IG, and it's great because Miles has kind of been like curating a relationship, like in the public eye, with the Cleveland Cavaliers as an organization, who I honestly, I'll be honest with you guys, still not a massive fan of their owner, because there's a series of, the way he's treated LeBron James over the years. I'm sure he's apologized and all that kind of stuff like that, but when somebody like LeBron James comes into your life, like as a sports owner, and you don't do everything in your power to make sure that he is victorious and successful, and you just put it on him to go out there and be able to win in a time where you know the league is changing, to be a type of owner who stuck to the oldest means possible when it comes to victory, where it's just like, well, if you're so great, you should be able to win with anyone. Nobody, like, that's not how professional sports work, especially when, like, you're talking about the top 1% of the 1% of basketball players on the planet. You can't just go out there and throw anybody on a team and have one great player and be victorious. Felt like, there's a lot of what LeBron James went through, that was a massive problem for him and hindered him from it affected his legacy, man. Like, there's some championships that are like left on the table because of the way the Cavaliers are run from the very top and their unwillingness to really give LeBron like full control, because we all know like the GM was born out of the Cleveland Cavaliers situation, right? Like, he was not, like, when he hit free agency for the first time, he made it very clear he was not going to a team that wasn't going to take his opinions about how to build up a successful basketball team into opinion or into take, right? He didn't want to deal with people who were more concerned with business than they were with basketball. He understands that winning leads to more money. That if that's one thing you take away from Bron's time with the Cleveland Cavaliers, winning leads to more money. Therefore, you should be in the pursuit of victory to earn more money. Anyway, moving on. Myles Garrett, defensive end, outside linebacker, edge player, if you will, for the Cleveland Browns, is a minority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, which there's a couple of things that go along with this. One, seeing a couple of young guys be able to pull this off, which is really cool, because there's so many instances where you look at a professional sports team and the ownership up top is a person who's like never played a sport, right? Because they were never good enough to actually play a sport, but they have enough money and they think it'd be cool to own. What is it? Warren Buffett calls sports teams very expensive toys, and he got into it and just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest man on the planet as of now. Anyway, he's got a lot of comments on owning sports teams. There's a lot of people who don't have an appreciation for sports that own sports teams because, let's be real, NFL and NBA teams and MLB teams to a certain degree, they just print money. Like, you can be terrible and still make money as a Major League Baseball team, as an NBA team, as an NFL team in particular. Like, you can be the worst team in the NFL and you're still coming out millions of dollars in the black every single season. And that's the wild part. That's even before the collective revenue stream, where like they take all the money that was generated in these certain categories in the league and then divvy it up evenly across all the teams. But even when you suck, like all these years that the Browns have been like pretty terrible, they've still been coming out on the positive, right? That can't be said about teams in the NBA. Like, there was a document that got leaked in 2020 that showed how much money each team was generating in the NBA, and it was like there's 12 teams or 11 teams that were finishing in the red at the end of the season or something like that. You can look that up. Somebody got like a leaked email and they were like, yeah, like there's like a lot of times where people have leaked like revenue gains of like individual revenue gains of NBA teams, and there are teams that are ownership groups that are losing money by running these teams, but because the revenue is collectively split across the teams at the end of the season, they're coming out millions of dollars ahead because, you know, the Minnesota Timberwolves may suck. They're not spending money on investing in free agents. They're not trying to do things that are conducive to winning, but guess who is? The LA Lakers. And the LA Lakers have a bigger brand name. They're in a massive media market. They're a worldwide brand, and every dollar the Lakers make is in some way a dollar for the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? When it's all said and done. Moving on. Really good to see young guys getting involved in this. That was my biggest point to take away from that. There's so many times where like you talk about when big amounts of money is being spent and invested that it's just some old white guy at the top of it all. To see two young black guys being able to do it is massively important. Also, like I said, black aspect of it, I'm never going to be this guy who's like shies away from being like, hey man, like race doesn't matter when it comes to like running businesses. I do believe that race does have a factor to play in terms of like, hey man, there are people who do not perceive, there are people out there that don't believe that you can do something until somebody shows you that you can, which is okay in my book. Like, if you're a person who like, I didn't believe that black people could be astronauts until I saw a black astronaut, you know, that's important. Like, that means that there are people out there who got to chase and get into areas that people didn't think that black people could ever get inside of, and be there to inspire like the 50, 60, 70, hundreds of other people who are coming in right behind them. You know what I mean? Once you show where the top of the mountain is at, other people will start to climb. And that's cool, man. But yeah, shout out to Myles Garrett. Obviously they did this for business purposes. Myles Garrett getting involved with the Cavaliers is a big boon to the Cavaliers, who are, like, let's be objective about this. They're a team that's on the up and up. They spent money on Donovan Mitchell. They've got a lot. They've got the Mobley guy. I say Mobley guy, even though everybody knows why I'm saying that, right? Because I get both of them mixed up. One is still in college, and the other one is in the NBA. I get them mixed up, and I think it's Emmanuel Mobley. Anyway, it's one of those things where, like, the Cavaliers are on the up and up, and Myles getting involved with them gives them some, mad Q rating. Myles has got a high Q rating right now. He's killing it. He's the number one athlete in Cleveland. Let's be real. He's been there longer. He's the face of the franchise over there, whatever the fuck you have to say about the quarterback situation. Myles Garrett is the best player on that fucking team, and there's no question about that whatsoever. Just like the Steelers, right? Like, the face of the franchise for the Steelers is TJ Watt, bro. Like, there's no like, oh man, it's Kenny Pickett because he plays the quarterback position. It's like, no, dude, like, it doesn't have to be the QB. It can be the best player on the team who does a great job of representing the team, which is, without question, TJ Watt. And there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, a lot of responsibility comes with that. A lot of good things come with it. And this is one of the good things. You get into a group of people who have to, like, vote you in. Like, you can't just pull up and be like, there's available shares for the Cavaliers, I'm going to buy some. Like, it has to be approved by the league and, like, other league owners, and also the owners of the team and the ownership group of the team, right? It behooves you to have as many recognizable faces a part of the ownership group of the Cleveland Cavaliers as possible for when the dark times come, if they ever do come again. Myles and Lasagna, they're on some other stuff, right? Like, they're trying to venture into, like, semi-unknown territory. There had only been one other black person to own a professional hockey franchise, I believe, in North America, until Myles Jack and his mom bought majority ownership in the Allen Americans. That I'm not gonna sit here and say that's sad, because there's a lot of reasons that cold environments, which are naturally behoovant to being able to play hockey. There's a lot of people who grew up playing hockey, like learning how to skate on lakes and learn how to skate on, like, artificial ice. And facts are, You play hockey, like, most hockey players are born out of cold environments, right? Whatever you have to say about, like, you can rent rink time when you go to the Galleria in Houston, Ashton, and Memorial City Mall. Like, most hockey players are from cold environments, because hockey by nature is a cold sport, right? And that factors into it. There's a money aspect of it as well that factors into it. There's the risk to reward factor that goes into it, right? Like, there's nobody, like, when you talk about going into different black communities, wherever they may be, like, there's not, just in for instance, like, how many hockey programs do you think there are in the South, right? And the South has a massive amount of black people, but there's just a segment of this country that does not have hockey as a thing that's on the radar for a lot of group of people. I'm not even talking about just black people. I'm talking about people in general. They're just not, it's just not on the radar. It has to be like a cultural thing. And I'm telling you this right now, like, the South is dominated by the culture of football. And that takes away a massive store of athletes that would technically be available to hockey if they could figure out a way to invest into it. And I know they can't change the weather and make Houston and Dallas and Louisiana and Florida and Georgia, and they can't make these places cold weather environments where it snows on a regular basis, or cold enough where water freezes over for people to be able to, like, ice skate and stuff, all that kind of stuff like that. But facts are, like, that is a big hurdle. And so having a guy who owns a professional hockey team in North Texas is going to go a long way in terms of, like, hey, that's a recognizable brand now because Myles Jack is involved. And I'm not sitting here saying that Myles is going to get, like, 50 black kids or, like, thousands of black kids into hockey or anything like that. That's not his job. But knowing, like, it's one of those things where, like, black people get involved with it, and it makes it just a little bit more okay for other black people to get involved with it. For instance, like anime in the real world. Like, black people, the school I went to, the black people at the school that I went to tried to pretend like anime was whack for, like, a really long period of time. And now that we're all older, for somehow, some way, we all know exactly what happened during Dragon Ball Z in terms of storylines. now that we're like all 30-something years old. Everybody knows exactly what happened during Dragon Ball Z at the same time while they were telling me that watching anime was whack. Somehow we all know exactly what happened during the Cell games. Anyway, moving on. First hydration break of the show. When we come back, it'll be the worst of the worst. Worst thing I saw in sports. Then we have We Talking Money or We Talking Money. That's the segment where we talk about money. And we got media suggestion. I actually have a media suggestion this week. And What's Poppin', where we break down stories that are going on all across the world of sports. We'll be right back. Hydration break number 1 on the books. I'm gonna mute my mic and play some music from Christina Gukis, who provides all the music for this show. We'll start off with Humble Beliefs, so that's 3 minutes and 8 seconds, and that's when I'll be back right here on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. And we're back here live on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. I talk too much into this microphone. We are moving right along. We got the worst of the worst. We talking money and we talking money, but let's talk about the worst thing that's on sports this week. It was pretty simple. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I think the Chicago Bulls have hit rock bottom and we're 3 games into the NBA season. So, game 1 of the NBA season, the I don't know why I said Buffalo Bulls, but the Chicago Bulls lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder by 20 points. I think it was 124 to 104, which is not the worst score to lose by in the NBA, especially like there's a lot of times where like, you know, you hit that 113 to 98 or something like that. That looks way worse on the sheet. But when you hit 104 to 124, it's like, oh man, people was ripping it. Apparently Apparently the Bulls dropped 30 in the first quarter, or 36 points in the first quarter, and then they scored 67 or 69 points for the remaining 3, which, if you're doing the math at home, that is less than 25 points per quarter, my guy. Less than 25 points per quarter across 3 quarters for a professional basketball team. Pretty bad. Especially when that professional basketball team has DeMar DeRozan and your boy Zach LaVine on it as well. So, explain the context. They had a players-only meeting, which, if you're not familiar with, in the world of sports, players-only meetings usually mean it's a wrap. They usually go completely sideways because they happen late in the season for a team that has had a series of things go horribly wrong, and they're trying to rally together. Very few times does a player-only meeting actually get the team to rally and finish off the season strong, mainly because by the time you get to the players-only meeting, it's too late. People have checked out. They already are pissed off by one or multiple coaches on the coaching staff to the point where they're not about it, right? There's players who their mental fortitude has been eroded away and they're no longer having a good time, which is bad news for everybody. And they make it bad news for everybody else too. If they're having a bad time, everybody else got to have a bad time. There's guys that are like that. There are gals that are like that. There are people that are like that play sports, right? Even in the smallest avenues of pickup basketball, that happens. Don't forget that happens all the time. Even in micro situations like pickup basketball. If I'm having a bad time, the ball's going into the crowd. I used to be around kids like that all the time when I went to private school and played basketball. It sucked, man, because it was oh man, you're having a bad time. Why are you trying to ruin this for the rest of us? And we're doing our thing anyway. The Bulls player only meeting, have no idea what was said in it because 99% of the time players only meetings, which I will say this as well. Problem with a lot of these players-only meetings is they happen at the facility when you very much have access to everybody else on the team outside of the facility. So there's a small aspect of it that comes off like it's a little bit showy, right? When a players-only meeting happens, everybody hears about it, and that's usually part of the problem. So the Bulls have one before the coaches even get back into the locker room after the 20-point loss. They're already having a meeting, and they ask the coaches to leave the locker room, which, if you're a coach, you don't want to be in the locker room to begin with. Most of them don't even like being in there because in their mind, the locker room is a sacred place for players to be the players and interact with themselves. Same thing with the coach's office and stuff like that. Those are environments, and you need those. You need those to maintain your sanity in sports. We all know this. You need a space. You need your own personal space to maintain your sanity in everyday life. So why is that any different when you are constantly surrounded by cameras? People are asking you questions that are typically surrounded by hey man, why'd you mess up at this thing you've been practicing and honing and care about your entire life? And if you don't tell me an answer, you're a dick. You know what I mean? Anyway, whack stuff. Whatever. Players only meeting. I will point this out. The big thing they take away from this is I think they had this meeting because they think the Thunder are not that good, but there's a lot of evidence, in particular some SGA-shaped evidence, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shaped evidence that implies that the Thunder might be on to something. Chet Holmgren got bodied in this game, and they still destroyed overall in this one. That's what we got going on for us right now. I think this is a team that was borderline playoff team, borderline playoff team last year, playoff team the year before, and they think they should get off to a hot start to start the season. They probably were seeing some stuff they was eerily reminiscent of last season that set them up for failure, and they did not want that to continue. So that's the big takeaway from this. I think this is a slight overreaction to playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, as we start the season, it is 82 games. It's a long, long time before they start handing out the Larry O'Brien trophy. But they look like they could be a playoff team. Off rip. Right now, they look like they can be a playoff team. Too bad they're not. Too bad the playoffs don't start tomorrow. Right? But the Thunder are looking strong to start the season. I don't think it's as much about the Bulls sucking as much as the Thunder are very good. That's what I got for worst of the worst. Blowing the players-only meeting card immediately means that you can no longer use it throughout the course of the season, which means that when shit goes wrong, shit going wrong, and it's going to keep going wrong. Usually, and I reference one of the greatest speeches made in cinematic history in a sports movie, the quicksand speech from The Replacements. You do one thing wrong, it becomes two, it becomes three, and before you know it, you're in over your head. That's quicksand in sports. And a players only meeting after game one says quicksand all over it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about some money. Moving on to our segment called We Talking Money or We Talking Money. What we talk about money. Today's price is a couple mil, baby. Don't worry about it. So the NFL is playing in Germany this upcoming weekend. I think it's back-to-back weekends because the Seahawks play one of their games in Germany. By the way, the Seahawks wearing their throwback uniforms this week. I did not mention this on Wednesday or yesterday, whatever yesterday was. The Colts uniforms, the alternate uniforms that looked like they were playing like Duke, looked pretty cool. I can't lie. They looked pretty good. They did not look they didn't look as bad as some of the studio photos made them look. I'll say that much. So that's a huge step in the right direction because I think the Colts have some of the most generic uniforms in all the professional sports. But today's price is just a couple mil. Ain't no thing. Ain't no thing. The NFL Germany games are going down this weekend, and if you're watching this on Saturday, less than 24 hours because it's gonna be early in the morning, guys. I don't like what's happening for us as a sports culture. I used to be a guy who made fun of people who watch the EPL at 8:30 in the morning, and now the NFL is trying to make me one of those people. I think that's wrong. I think that's treachery of the highest order. I thought we had an agreement. I will stay up all night and watch football. What I do not want to do is go hang out with my friends, drink an entire bottle of wine on Saturday, and then be required to wake up at 8 o'clock, 8:15, even if it's 8:29 in the morning to watch football, bro. Because I tell you this right now, if I do what I normally do on Saturday and then I'm required to watch football from 8:30 in the morning till 10 to 11 o'clock at night, I'm not making it. I have not made it through an entire day, an entire Sunday of football in 2-3 weeks, bro. I have not. I've had to take a nap in the middle of the day because the second that I eat the kind of food that I eat normally on Sunday, I'm asleep. I feel like an old man. Anyway, going back to We Talking Money or We Talking Money. The NFL is playing in Germany. I said that for like the 5th time. They're playing in Germany. They're playing where Bayern Munich plays, a.k.a. Bayern. Most people know what team I'm talking about when I say Bayern. If you don't know, the Bundesliga, which is the home league for Germany, is home to one of the most dominant teams in the history of like soccer ever, named Bayern Munich. And yes, they're in Munich, Germany. They are hosting the NFL games this year like they did last year as well, where a super dope picture came out of those people standing in the stadium they were standing up, they had full steins of beer, and they had cigarettes in their mouth looking cool as hell watching NFL football, rooting on dudes hitting each other, right? I'm assuming we're going to get more of that. Assuming we're going to get a lot more of that. The league has paid for new hybrid turf to be installed specifically for this game. I would like to imagine they've already installed it. I believe they installed it like on Tuesday or something like that, which does not seem like a lot of time, but we live in the modern era, 2023, where, people have got accelerated adhesives and people have gotten this whole like installing turf thing down to a science. Would like to point out, this is the latest chapter in what has become the Big Grass saga. Big Grass has been trying to work its way back into the NFL. It has become the thing that every NFL player who's retired, some people who are currently in the league, are trying to make a massive push for every single team in the league to move and switch back to natural grass in their stadiums. I think a lot of I'm going to be honest with you, I watched the Snapchats. I think I've talked about this before on the show before. I watch the Snapchats of pretty much every single NFL team every single day. They just show the players running through drills. I take some of those drills and do them myself in my backyard because it helps me with my agility and my footwork and stuff like that. But it's just cool to watch, it's just cool to watch football practice. Maybe I miss it. I was not very good at football, but football practice was kind of fun when I played football. A lot of it looks like it's real grass. Like for most of the teams that I watch, I do know that every team in the NFL does have real grass, artificial turf, in multiple practice fields, obviously, and a lot, like 99% of them have. Well, up until recently, the Bengals didn't have one, but they have indoor practice facilities as well for the cold weather teams like Baltimore and Buffalo. That is important, obviously. That's important to prevent injury because cold causes muscle restriction, which increases injury. But anyway, the push for natural grass to be everywhere in the NFL, including playing surfaces for football teams, because there is a slight correlate. There's a small uptick in injuries when artificial turf is involved, according to some data that has been gathered. I'm sure the NFL is hard at work at paying somebody to run a fake study to run a counter evidence or counter piece of evidence to the recent information that's come out about a correlation between artificial turf and injury. So don't wait too long for that. They'll probably have it by the Super Bowl, guys. Don't worry. They have elected to go and flip out the grass in Bayern to hybrid field turf, which is a mixture between real grass and artificial grass. And I think that's to make it's artificial grass that's meant to reinforce the natural grass that's there. That is important because the last time the NFL played in Bayern's home stadium, they actually they wrecked it so badly that Bayern had to pay to replace the entire field of grass because soccer players play on, and if you've ever played soccer before, you know this, soccer players try to play on the thinnest grass possible because it helps the ball move better, and also it reduces the amount of obstacles for the ball to be able to be on a clean line when you try and pass it to someone. Whereas like in football, the grass, you want the grass to have like a deep root system so that when you plant your foot, there's like a little bit of give from the ground, but you don't have to worry about digging up a divot like you would when you're playing on golf. When you're playing on like golf type grass situation, right? Like golf, usually, unless it's the rough and they intentionally have it that way, they're trying to keep the fairway like to the point where, like they want the topsoil and then they want the grass like slightly lifted off the ground, right? That's what we're talking about in terms of the stuff that NFL players are complaining about, because soccer playing surface is drastically different than what football players need, who are changing direction with a lot more weight on their body than soccer players typically are. Not to say that soccer players don't change direction quickly and hard or anything like that, but football players are doing the same angles that soccer players do, but with pads, trying to fight off another grown-ass man. Typically, if you're lucky, it's only one grown-ass man that you're trying to fight off. But there's other instances where you are doing that, plus trying to change directions drastically, and not being able to trust where you're putting your cleat down is always an issue. So that's a tough one. Will this reduce the number of lawsuits that the NFL is going to have to pay? Who knows? Could this be a sign of a massive investment, which the NFL has made it very, very clear? They've done so much market research about Germany in general. They think that they have millions of untapped NFL fans in Germany. So they're trying to that's why they're doing back-to-back weeks of NFL games, because let's be real, if these back-to-back weeks sell out, they're just going to add another week next year. And then before you know it, everybody's going to have Germany week, everybody's going to have London week, and it's just going to be a normal thing. Like, did you get randomly selected at the airport to go to Germany? Did you get randomly selected to go to the UK this year, kind of deal? For as many jokes as we make about the Jaguars being the team that's most familiar with England, fact of the matter is, we all better get familiar with it. We all better get pretty familiar with Germany and all this kind. Unless it's, the Texans, I think, have only done one of the UK games and they play the Jaguars. The Seahawks are playing in Germany, and I think this is like the third time they've done it or something like that. But that means I got to get up. I'm not looking forward to it. No, thank you. So next time you're randomly selecting teams, NFL, don't randomly select the Seahawks. Randomly select. What is going on here? Oh, did my stream go down? Oh, no, it didn't. I thought my stream went down. I'm on YouTube right now, and it was, behind by a lot for some reason. Anyway, back to live. Moving on, we're done talking about money. Let's talk about my media suggestion for this week. The thing that, the suggestion for you, sports fan, that I think you'll like the most. Sometimes it's a sporting event, sometimes it's a podcast. This week, it's a sporting event. It's the Battle of the Baddest, which I'm sure everybody's going to be tweeting about, posting about on Facebook, all this kind of stuff like that. If you guys ever heard, Tyson Fury, the undisputed champion of boxing dudes faces off. Also, the number one most least, Look, guys, Tyson Fury used to be the peak athletic form of the 1800s when bare knuckle boxing was a thing. That's every time I look at Tyson Fury, he is a picture perfect replica of every photo I've ever seen of a bare knuckle boxer. Even when he does his stances, when he does his freeze frames and everything like that, when he does the lineups for the photos at the weigh-in, he looks like a bare knuckle boxer because he'll go up there with full pants on. Like, so for this fight, he just took his suit jacket off and his dress shirt off, and he stood in front of Francis Ngannou, and they kind of like looked back and forth. He was talking a little shit back, back and forth, all that kind of stuff like that. But he's I mean, guys, let's be real. He's a bare knuckle boxer from like the 1800s who has somehow traveled forward in time to fight amongst us mortals and all this kind of stuff like that. So this should be a lot of fun. These are two of the most unique athletes most unique. These are two very unique athletes. If you don't know what I just corrected there, one of the first lessons I ever learned in college is most unique is not a thing. Never got taught that in English at any point that I can recall, but most unique is not a thing. Unique is a definitive word, so there's only unique and not unique. So Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou, both unique athletes in terms of how they came to arrive here. Francis Ngannou, if you're not familiar with his story, from Cameroon, claims Cameroon now, moved and immigrated, I want to say illegally to France, right? Immigrated illegally to France, didn't start fighting until the age of 26, dominated in the UFC as a heavyweight champion, one of the most, like the guy that when John Jones was coming off of his hiatus, which by the way, absolute nightmare scenario for the UFC to have to announce that John Jones is hurt this week, the same week that this fight is going down, because this has the potential to be fight of the year, because this is one of the few examples of a massive fight. I mean, Terrence Crawford and who did he fight? Terrence Crawford and whoever he beat the brakes off of this year, fight of the year. One of the best examples of just like tearing a dude up, right? Canelo's fought this year. This has got to be up there in contention for it already, just off the hype. These are two of the biggest personalities in the fight game as of right now. And Tyson doesn't really have any challengers when it comes to heavyweight boxing, right? Since he took care of Broner, really hasn't had any challenges. Francis Ngannou, when he was in the UFC, he had a lot of disputes about whether or not he was getting paid appropriately. He wasn't. Plot twist. Who would have thought? He's now with the PFL, which is the league that actually is also on ESPN Plus along with the UFC. If you're not familiar, if you know the name Kayla Harrison, she used to be on Team USA's judo squad. She's won a gold medal and a silver medal at the Olympics. She's one of the best judo practitioners in the history of like Team USA judo. She very much follows in the footsteps of one Ronda Rousey in the sense of like her vibe, how she dominates in fights and stuff like that. She was in the PFL Grand Prix, which is a tournament where the winner gets $1 million. The PFL is one of those unique fight leagues where they take entertainment value into account, and if you make it to the PFL playoffs, which yes, they have a playoff system to determine champions, if you make it to the playoffs, you have an unentertaining fight. Like me and my friend Snowman, we're like, we're into fighting and stuff like that. I just don't talk about it as frequently on this podcast, just because I don't know, man. I don't feel like I'm well versed enough to be able to talk about it. I enjoy watching fighting and stuff like that, but I spent a lot of time distinctly studying studying basketball, studying football. But I should talk about fighting more. I used to do it a lot more when Martin was on the show. But one thing about PFL, unique thing, if your fight sucks, like in terms of entertainment value, they bounce both of you out of the playoffs. Like straight up, they had a situation where they did that, I want to say like a couple months ago, where there's like a middleweight fight and both of the guys like were not entertaining. They weren't trying to make anything happen. They were trying to point fight, and the league was like, yeah, so we're eliminating both of them from the playoffs and we're resorting the tournament bracket. And I was like, yo, that's savage, bro. That savage also kind of being upfront about entertainment as a part of the game, and we're not about to let you dink and doink your way to a championship. You got to go out there. If you want to beat somebody, you got to beat them. So I respect that. I like that a lot, actually. I like that mentality quite a bit when it comes to sports. Especially, I used to be kind of averse to the concept of leaning into the fact that sports is about entertainment. But once you understand that there's a blend between, like, hey, winning is entertaining, and then there's other forms of entertainment that can happen all outside of it. Boxing leans a little bit too much into entertainment. And even though there's like elite level skill that goes on a regular basis, they lean heavy into the entertainment aspect of it. And that's part of the problem. But Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou, two of the most prominent fighters on the planet as of right now, duking it out. And it's very rare in boxing where like the two biggest names or some of the biggest names in the game get together and they just decide to fight it out. This kind of comes off like it's got like a little funsy aspect to it, but I will say this: Francis Ngannou's been making sure that videos of him training with Mike Tyson have been circulating around the internet, so that obviously is always going to get a lot of hype going to try and think that Francis is going to get to the same kind of notoriety that Mike Tyson did when it comes to boxing is outlandish. Mike Tyson is a once-in-a-lifetime type athlete, right? And he lined up, and it seems like he picked the perfect sport for him. Like, Mike Tyson probably could have played 1,000,000,001 other sports, but boxing is the one that would have that maximizes the skill set that he has. Plus, his trainers were perfect. A lot of the environment that led towards Mike Tyson getting to become Iron Mike is super messed up, and it's clearly scarred him for his life. But it also is a part of one of the greatest fighters, like the DNA of one of the greatest fighters ever. And that's Mike Tyson. So anyway, check that out this weekend. I don't get paid by anybody who's putting on the fight, so I'm not going to tell you how to find it. You can find it if you type in Tyson Fury Francis Ngannou or if you just type in Fury Ngannou into a web browser somewhere and they don't tell you how to find the fight, they didn't need me to help with advertising. They needed somebody else, and they probably got ripped off. We're taking a quick hydration break, and when I come back, we will be talking about what's popping in sports and finish up the show with Week 8 predictions for the NFL. As soon as I pick a song to play, Make Your Mark is what we're going to go with. Here we go. I'll be back in 2 minutes and 58 seconds. What is up? We're back here live on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. Had a lot of tangents, but it's time to power through and finish up this show, ladies and gentlemen. I said under 2 hours. We're at 1 hour and 7 minutes and ticking right now. So, let's see if I can keep my promise. 1:59 and 59 seconds is still under 2 hours. So, taking from the top, let's talk about what's popping in sports. College basketball is my only college basketball story of the day. I'm going to be honest with you. Apparently, the NIT doesn't think that wins matter. The NIT changed their selection criteria from automatic bids for teams that won. So, you could either be a team that won the regular season, which is like a long period of time and shows a consistent ability to be successful within your conference. You can win you are a team that auto bids by winning your regular season conference, but not being able to win your conference championship. Or if you were a team, and in those situations, you were not selected for the NCAA tournament. So this goes for, I went to one of these schools. So I went to Valparaiso University, and in my freshman year at Valpo, there was a collection. How do I say this? So we played a couple, and I say we because I went there and I played sports there, but I didn't play basketball. We played Butler. This is the year that Brad Stevens was the head coach of Butler. It was kind of wild in the grand scheme of things, but it was like Brad Stevens, head coach of Butler. They're doing their thing. They're making this crazy run. They pulled off a bunch of massive upsets. We play a bracket buster game on ESPN. Valpo ends up winning. Later on, playing the conference tournament, Valpo gets all the way to the final, loses. After winning the conference, regular season conference, right? Loses to Butler in the conference championship. NCAA tournament takes Butler, but not Valpo. And typically, when you talk about major conferences, the Horizon League was not a major conference, right? They used to take the number one and the number two team. Like it's a field of 68 teams. And basically the NCAA tournament would have multiple instances where they were like the third and fourth place team out of this conference is better than the first and second place team, or the second and third place team out of your conference. And they used a bunch of different specific metrics. The metric that the NIT is switching to is using net rating, which is a combination of your offensive rating subtracted from your defensive rating, which if your offense sucks and your defense is great, you're not a balanced enough team to be able to make the NIT kind of deal. That's what they're going for. It's an interesting approach. Many would say a bad approach because it no longer is centered around whether you won or lost basketball games. It's about how you played those games, and that could be considered dumb as shit because you could technically be, by this metric, you could be a team that loses every single game that you play by like 1 point, which of course is statistically highly unlikely, but possible. You could be a team that loses every single one of your games by 1 point, and you have a great offensive rating and a great defensive rating, but a terrible record, and a team that actually was winning games that didn't do it in the best way possible by like the metric that goes with offensive rating would not be selected for the NIT. Now, who am I to sit here and try and give a shit about the NIT? I haven't watched an NIT basketball game in probably, I want to say like 4 years, bro. I'm going to be honest with you. I probably haven't watched an NIT game in 4 years. But for other college basketball teams, like for players, that stuff matters, man. That's those NIT games are an opportunity to get in front of scouts for a multitude of leagues, not necessarily the NBA. Other leagues exist, in case you guys forgot. But they're an opportunity for guys who don't necessarily have, but, you know, they're not playing on ESPN every other weekend, and they are looking for opportunities to get scouted by a multitude of teams overseas, in America, G League teams, all that kind of stuff like that. There are extra opportunities to get in front of more competition. If you're lucky, you can get into a situation like I want to say ECU did, where they played against Kentucky one year when they were not great, and they got a chance to be front and center because Kentucky had a lot of hype around, and they had an NBA player on their team, and they subsequently, I think, lost in the first round of the NIT at Rump Arena, which was kind of wild, and it was, people were talking about firing Calipari, which, let's be real, Kentucky fans are insane. They're always talking about firing Calipari regardless of like how good a job he does, which is kind of wild. But yeah, the top two net rating teams in the conference get the bid to the NIT now instead of the the teams with like the best record and possibly played a really good offense, a really good defense. So that's tough. That's tough. It doesn't seem like a logical way to pick who the best teams are. Major League Baseball. Look at me very closely in my eyes. We're going to do this, and it's going to take about 10 seconds. The Astros got eliminated in the ALCS. The Rangers have advanced on to the World Series. They lost Game 1 of the World Series. And that is Major League Baseball here on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. Moving on. Fuck Dallas. So, yeah. Anyway, what else was I talking about? Oh, other sports that matter now. By the way, shout out to Dusty Baker, one of the GOATs, Houston legend, took over the team in the middle of a scandal, was able to get to the ALCS every single year that he was a manager, and won a World Series. Goddamn legend, bro. Don't give a crap what anybody says about him. I'm glad if the Astros are going to get a World Series, I'm glad they were able to get one for Dusty Baker, and I think the whole city was super pumped that Dusty Baker was able to grab one for the squad, for him in particular. Moving on, NBA storylines. There's a mysterious number that everybody's looking for in the NBA, and it is the number of minutes that LeBron James is allowed to play in any NBA basketball game. That number seems to be like 29 minutes, which is a little strange, but Darvin Ham, LeBron James, and a series of other people have made it relatively clear that, hey guys, he ain't playing every game, and he ain't playing every minute of every game. I watched last night's TNT game on a replay where the Suns played the Lakers, and Kevin Durant was absolute, and Darvin Ham played this perfectly. He shaved minutes off the first, second, and third quarter so that some of the younger guys can get out there and get adjusted and go out there and make some shots, right? Like Rui Hachimura is one of those guys that, like, he's got to get shots up in games to be able to get his three-pointer on point. By the way, Richard Jefferson and Candace Parker, I believe that was Marv Albert. No, it was Mike Breen. On that broadcast, hilarious. Richard Jefferson is trying so hard to say the most disrespectful stuff possible on the broadcast, man. It is absurd. By the way, shout out Candace Parker, WNBA champion, baby. We didn't do, is it on here? I didn't do it about a week ago. I messed that up. Anyway, we'll do it here in a second after I do these NBA headlines. But yeah, there's like a mysterious number that LeBron James is limited to every single game. Some people will speculate it's 29 minutes. Some people is like it's 25. There's like a certain number of games he's just not going to play this season, which will make him ineligible for All-NBA. And I think he's going for like his 20th All-NBA or something like that this year. He also is, in case we all forgot, he's still pushing the all-time points record further this season. So every bucket he makes what people previously thought was an untouchable record even more untouchable, because not only is he in like year 21, but he's also still scoring at like a ridiculous clip. Because like I mentioned, I watched that Suns-Lakers game, and Kevin Durant was going off. And then the fourth quarter happened, and LeBron James was like, I am significantly larger than all these small people in the paint, and showed it. Bad news for the little guys who were in the paint. And I say little guys, people who are like 6'4", 6'5". But all people are small in comparison to, LeBron James. Unreal. It was pretty cool. They showed a clip of him talking to Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, who are, for a lot of people, there's a lot of kids who look up to those guys right now, and they're getting they got an opportunity to go to the game. They were courtside, and he went up to him, and I want to say Dion was there based off the photos that I saw, but it was pretty dope. I can't lie. The conversation he had with them was like, "Hey man, keep doing your thing. I'm watching you guys. I'm really supporting you guys. Hope y'all take it all the way. Do your thing." And they were like, "Hey man, can we like get a jersey?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna take care of y'all, man. I'm sending the whole thing. You getting the jersey, the shoes, all that kind of stuff." I'm like, "That's crazy, bro." Like LeBron James sounds like presidential. He's like, "Don't worry, don't worry, youngsters. I'll take care of you," kind of deal. It was really cool to see. And it was also cool to see Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, two guys who have been, to other people, they would be starstruck seeing those two guys, and they were clearly starstruck being able to talk to LeBron James, who, whatever you got to say about him, one of the greatest to ever do it, baby. Anyway, speaking of an old man, let's talk about a young man. Big Vic, a.k.a. Victor Wembanyama. We'll not be calling him Wemby on this show. He's a little bit more intimidating than the very, very soft-sounding name of Wimby. Anyway, Big Vic's first play in the NBA, like I said before, he's a lot more intimidating than the nickname Wimby. He blocked the shit out of Kyrie Irving. So I'll describe it like this. Kyrie Irving crosses over, dribbles towards the free throw line, takes a pull-up jumper, and from the second hash mark inside, or the second hash mark down the free throw line, Victor jumps up in the air and swats it back towards half court. Apparently, Kyrie Irving also doesn't believe in physics, or he would have known to not take that shot. So that happened. I want to say the third play of the game on offense for the Mavericks was Kyrie trying to pull off a reverse layup, and Vic was also there and threw it off a little bit. But yeah, no, like the Mavs took over that game. The Mavs took over that game relatively soon after that, and the Spurs lost while Luka was able to pull off. I want to say he had almost a first half triple double in this one. He had like 9, 5, and 5 or something halfway through the first quarter, and it was crazy. But yeah, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Mentioning some other stuff, there's been major movement in the shoe game. The sneaker wars continue. As many of you do and don't know, the sneaker wars are the secret battle that is fought every single night in the NBA, and the victor changes based off of who has a career high and who doesn't. But when I started this show, I was talking about something crazy happened. De'Aaron Fox, who signed with the Curry brand, if you're unfamiliar with it, the Curry brand sounding like the Jordan brand, that is exactly what it is. Steph Curry has signed a long, extensive deal with Under Armour to open up his own branch of it, very similar to the Rocks. I think this is a brilliant idea as a person who personally does not like the people who are clearly designing clothes for Under Armour for the super patriot type people. Under Armour has become like the unofficial uniform for I might be a racist. I'm gonna be honest with you. And the Curry stuff and the Rock stuff, the Iron Paradise line have kind of mitigated that for me because they've done a really good job of making it look really cool. I know what they're going for. There's a lot of dude bro in some of these designs as a person who's currently wearing Iron Paradise shorts, but they use some unique color patterns. The Curry brand is a lot smoother. Obviously, I like Steph Curry a lot more than I like, is it Kevin Smith? It's like the guy who's in charge of Under Armour, who's like come out and said some really suspect stuff. And when I say suspect, it's very clearly leaning towards one thing, but I don't want to get into that today. It's 1:30 in the morning on a Saturday. I'm talking about basketball. De'Aaron Fox signed with the Curry brand. He's the first athlete to do so. He's wearing the Curry shoes. He gets paid to be able to do that. First of all, H-Town, hold it down. Yes, Cypress's very own. Or if you watch that Drewski video he posted on his IG, people from the sea. 2 white guys showed up to Drewski's Could Have Been Records auditions from when they had him here in Houston. And 2 white guys showed up. They tried to rap, and he kicked them out almost instantaneously. He asked them what part of Houston they were from. He's like, oh, we from up the street. We from up the way. Have no idea where these auditions were going on, but I have a feeling they were actually like in Houston. And when they said from up the street, they were lying. They said the sea, and the only place that I can think of that somebody would say is the sea in Houston, it is Cypress. And it was that clip, that second clip, that seconds of clip in those slides encapsulates so many people in Houston that try to pretend that they're hard in Houston and from the hood, but they're really from the burbs. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Just because you're from inside the loop in Houston doesn't mean you're from the hood. There's a lot of nice areas in Houston. The hood is everywhere, as many people will say. There's a hood in Cypress. I doubt those guys are from that part of Cypress. Because they were trying hard. They were trying really hard to convince Drewski the sea was like a real thing. And if you're from Houston, you know good and goddamn well it's not. So yeah. So anyway, De'Aaron Fox dropped 39 points tonight. And Steph Curry dropped 41, and they were both wearing the Steph Curry Dominion shoes, which, if you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan, you know how cool that sounds, right? So, but yeah, Steph Curry's new shoe is dropped. It's called the Dominion, and if you're a person who needs ankle support, I still think that's a major part of his brand of, like, I make the most ankle supportive shoes in basketball. I was having a conversation with a guy I play pickup basketball with, and he's like, I only can wear LeBron James's shoes. And he's like, yeah, LeBron James is like, big, tall, bulky guy. they design his shoes like he's big, tall, bulky guy, and I need that. And that's actually a really important part of being able to play basketball, understanding what shoes are yours and what are designed for you and what works for you. Anyway, Under Armour making major moves. Not only did they make the smart move of creating Curry's own separate brand within Under Armour after they lost Joel Embiid to Skechers, that is exactly what happened, by the way. Joel Embiid is signed with Skechers along with Julius Randle and one other player in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox signs on with Curry Brand and has been the first athlete, budding star within the realm of the NBA. He is he helped put the Kings on the map last season. So in a really important aspect, he was a big part of the Like the Beam season, and the Kings started off, I think they're 2-1 so far this season already, and they're getting right back to where they right back where they left off from, and making it happen. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, the shoes and everything. So that's pretty cool. Two really good basketball players linking up. Let's talk about other stuff going on in the NFL, shall we? So Dalvin Cook still exists, in case you were wondering, in case you didn't know. Dalvin Cook's still out there in the real world. He threatened to ask for a trade, it seemed like, in media availability earlier this week. So basically, if you haven't been keeping up with the Jets, which I understand, like, why would you? A lot of people were really trying to hype up the Jets being able to get a couple of wins the last couple of weeks. And, winning is important. They played really well against the Eagles, but in the long run, I don't think the way that they play football is very sustainable, but we can have a conversation about that when they're on like a 4-game losing streak. Dalvin Cook threatened to ask for a trade. He said in media availability, he wants what's best for everybody. He thought coming to the Jets he didn't think there was going to be like a snap count situation in terms of like 50-50 split, but he wanted to be way more involved than 19 carries through 7 weeks. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, Dalvin Cook's thing was like, he basically has rushed for over 4,000 yards in the last 4 seasons, which is insane, right? Over 1,000 yards every single season. There's people out there that are talking about like statistically his yards are not worth this much, and I'm like, I don't think that's how gaining yards works on a football field, but you do you, fam. Basically, Breece Hall is too good to take off the field, and they have not. Remember, every carry for Breece Hall is one less pass that Zach Wilson has to attempt, and it's very important to keep the Zach Wilson pass attempt numbers really low. Really, really low. Because, I think in my mind, he's only good for like 8 or 9 good passes a game as of right now. Same thing with Russell Wilson. Anyway, go back and watch that Jets-Broncos game and you know exactly what I'm talking about. They got to spread out the passes that are going on. Because sometimes you get a little too confident. He fling it out there a little too much, and DBs in the NFL are really good. And I guess he still hasn't figured that out. I feel like the Jets are forgetting how fragile a dominant run game is in the current NFL. Football's really tough game, brutal game, all that kind of stuff like that. But injury frequency is really high with running backs. I think everybody knows that. The modern day NFL requires you basically to have 2 number 1 running backs on your roster, which is kind of absurd to think about. But if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, like I went through and I just looked at this week's schedule. I just looked at the first 8 games, and I came up with these running back tandems that are mad important for why these teams are successful. So the Falcons, they have Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson. Miami has Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, and you can see what happens when Devon's not out there. Last week, their run game essentially got shut down until the second half of the game. The Colts stumbled into Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, right? They've gotten super lucky, especially now considering their budding superstar quarterback is now out for the entire season, and they're heavily dependent upon Gardner Minshew to go out there and make plays. They need to reduce the number of passes he attempts as well. Not to say that Gardner is not good, but balance is going to be important for them to be successful as an offense. With the Panthers, a lot of underrated aspect of this one, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. Huge benefit for Bryce Young to have 2 running backs that he can depend on to go out there and get yards. Same thing with Jordan Love. Jordan Love has AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. Those guys are massive for how these teams are going to be successful, and not necessarily saying that the Vikings necessarily need this, but Cam Akers and Alexander Mattison have helped a lot, because remember the first 5 weeks of the season, the Vikings run game was the worst in the league, and it's slowly been ticking up because Alexander Madison's been doing a little bit better. Cam Akers, by the way, Cam Akers, the sad boy of the NFL, and I don't mean disrespectfully, go look at his Instagram. You could swear that the Vikings have him like locked up in a cage in the bottom of M&T Bank Arena. Straight up, M&T Bank Stadium. I don't know why I said that. You could swear they got him trapped. They got him locked up. They won't let him out. They won't let him out. No. I don't have to worry about getting demonetized for singing that song. I sound nothing like Akon. True musical genius. Anyway, stay hydrated, kids. We don't exist in a one running back world anymore, and we gotta act like it. And I think putting all your chips in the Breece Hall basket, although panning out right now, in the long run, not gonna work out for you. And then expecting Dalvin to just pop in and do everything that he did when he was with the Vikings without like having any reps to go along with it, unrealistic. Anyway, other stuff that's going on. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has he said on Instagram, I don't know how serious to take this announcement, to be honest with you, and I think there's got to be some degree of skepticism, but the Lions beat reporter reported it like it was like real news. He said on IG the paperwork for him to change his name to CD Deuce is on the way. So I don't know what that means. Maybe it means on the way to the trash. More than likely means on the way to the courthouse. He was also placed on IR today as well, so glad he's been able to keep a stiff upper lip. Chase Winovich, some of you guys are familiar with him. He was really good at Michigan. He got drafted by the Patriots, and he seemed like the textbook Patriots draft pick. He is retired after having signed with the Texans in the offseason, didn't make the 53-man roster, and then signed with the Dolphins. And the messed up, I almost said the F word. You can't say the fuck word on this podcast. Anyway, Chase Winovich looks a lot like a dude that is on the Dolphins, and maybe this is me being racist, but the way that they look on the field, and that means with the helmet on and everything, Chase Winovich looks a lot like Alex Van Ginkel, and it's kind of hard to unsee. Anyway, Chase has retired. Congratulations, my dude. I don't know if it was like by your own choice. Obviously, it's not by your own choice or anything like that, but congratulations on retirement and good luck in the next thing that you're going to do. You got your whole life ahead of you and a lot of money, bro. Hopefully a lot of money. Marvin Jones Jr. has taken a step away from the team to focus on some family issues, and I don't know what that means. It was really cryptic on Instagram, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been keeping up vehemently with Marvin Jones Jr. as a person. I don't know him. None of the people that I know him or anything like that, but doesn't stop me from wishing him well. Hopefully this is more like stability type thing, not life or death type situation for Marvin Jones, and I hope it works itself out and everybody comes out okay on the other side, man. I mean, to get it to the point where you feel like you got to step away from doing your job, that's pretty tough. It's a sign that something pretty serious, whether it be serious to everybody else, who cares? It's serious to Marvin Jones enough to the point where he steps away from playing football. And I hope he's back soon. I don't even care if he ever plays football again. I just hope his family's all right. Him and his family are all right. Moving on, let's talk. Oh, wait. I got to do one more thing. Let's talk about a week ago. I'm not going to say the next part. Anyway, about a week ago, one of my favorite segments. About a week ago, last week, the Las Vegas Aces only had one championship. This week, they are one of 3 teams in WNBA history to ever win back-to-back titles, baby. And if you know the other 2, you're a cool kid. One is the LA Sparks, who won the 5th and 6th titles in the history of the WNBA. And then the other team, H-Town, hold it down. I love how the WNBA has a very clear, defined rule about who can, like, how much is good winning and how much is bad winning. So there's a bunch of teams that have won championships with another team sandwiched in between. So it's like there's one where it's like Phoenix Mercury, Minnesota Lynx, Phoenix Mercury. There's a bunch where it's like Phoenix Mercury, San Antonio Silver Stars, Minnesota Lynx type of deal. So Minnesota Lynx, some other team, Minnesota Lynx. There's a bunch of those. There's only 3 teams where it's back to back. It's the Sparks, the Comets, and the Aces. There's been a team that's 3-peated, it's the Comets, and then there's been a team that is 4-peated, and it's the Comets. The first 4 championships in the history of WNBA were won by the Houston Comets, who, if you actually go to Toyota Center, their championship banners are still hanging up in the rafters right next to the Rockets back-to-back championship banners. So, there is, remember kids, there is such a thing as too good. 4 in a row is too many. According to the WNBA. If you don't remember, the Rockets, the Houston Comets fell apart and they were disbanded as a team. So, yeah, it was tough. It was tough times. One of the most dominant franchises in the history of Houston. There's been, actually, believe it or not, Houston's got a lot of back-to-back champions. The Dynamo won back-to-back. The Rockets won back-to-back. And technically, the Comets won back-to-back twice with the 4-peat. And I'm trying to think. The Texans have never won a Super Bowl or anything like that, but the Astros, I mean, they got multiple championships, but not back to back. Working on it. We're working on it. Don't worry. Stick around long enough, you'll see it. Moving on. Let's talk about some foosball, shall we? Let's talk about some football. A lot of stuff coming. A lot of teams coming off a bye week. Coming back this week, in particular, game number 1, Texans at Panthers. So this game actually rarely happens. It's kind of weird. I think the last time it happened, Deshaun Watson was in like his 3rd year as the Texans quarterback, and Cam Newton was still playing. So it is Texans +3 with the over/under of 43.5. The Texans, don't forget, big aspect coming into this one. Obviously, Bryce Young, super young quarterback. C.J. Stroud, super young quarterback. I don't know if you guys know this or not. They were taking in back-to-back picks. Kind of a big deal. This is number 1 versus number 2. And as we all know, by the rules of sports, whoever wins this is forever the better player. There's never, no matter how many times they play each other ever again, whoever wins this is the best one. Forever. No matter what happens, you're the best one. And the other one sucks forever. There can only be one good player at a time, especially in a draft. There can never be multiple good players in a single NFL draft. I think the big storyline coming into this is going to be the Panthers have a new play caller. They have like a 38-year-old offensive assistant that is taking over play calling duties from Frank Wright, and he's a black dude. So I'm going to be interested to see how that changes up stuff. Miles Sanders is supposed to be coming back. We'll see. Miles has been dealing with a groin issue for, I think, since like preseason or something like that. Anyway, he's been playing through it. Chuba Hubbard did a killer job last game for the Panthers. They were off last week, but 2 weeks ago he did a great job. So hopefully that plus a little bit of magic from Bryce Young is going to put on a good show here. But I'm going with the Panthers. I'm going with the Texans to get the dub at home. By the way, in gambling language, +3 is 0. So the Texans are so when you're at home, you start off with 3 points by most people's gambling metrics, even though that's kind of changed a little bit. But for the most part, that's like the rule of thumb when it comes to gambling and shit in general. If you're the home team, you start off with +3. So they think it's actually -6. Yeah. Wait, did I get that right? So it's Texans -3. So it's -6 really, because the Panthers are supposed to have 3 points for being the home team, and the Texans are taking 3 more. So yeah, they think the Texans are supposed to win this game by 6 points, almost a touchdown, which is actually a lot in the grand scheme of things of football. Rams at Cowboys. So there's this weird thing. The Cowboys have won 10 consecutive home football games, and it's the longest streak they've had since the year I was born. So 31 years ago, they had a 10-game winning streak at home. The Cowboys did. Big big storyline coming out of this one for the Rams. The Rams have officially cut Brett Maher. Maybe a phrase that the Cowboys fans should be riled up and excited about because they love that. Brett Maher missed 3 field goals in that game versus the Steelers that came down to literally them not being able to get the ball back because there was a clearly bad spot from the officials on 4th down on a 4th and 1 situation where they were like, Kenny Pickett got the 1 yard he needed for a first down when like there's literally no camera angle available that shows Kenny Pickett anywhere near close to the first down marker on the QB sneak. But they couldn't challenge it because it was before the 2-minute warning, so it was not under 2 minutes for the booth to be able to challenge it. They had also run out of timeouts. So that was kind of tough. That's a tough way to take a L. Anyway, the Rams and the Cowboys. So, Cowboys situation. We've seen some good defensive play so far this season. They started off the season looking really dominant versus the New York Giants. We've now come to understand there's a reason they look great versus the Giants. Some of you guys didn't anticipate it. I knew it all along. It's because they have a fraud or had a fraud at quarterback. So, this one is interesting. Home win streak means a lot. It's Cowboys -6, by the way, based off what I understand. It's Cowboys -6. Do we believe that the passing offense is going to magically make an appearance here in this game? The Rams have shown some great defensive back play throughout the course of this season, and the pressure has always been there, right? We know that the offensive line they have right now is not superstar level like it was 4 years ago. Guess what? Time marches on. Things change, right? People change, things change. The essence of existing changes in the NFL every single week. They even have like Tyron Smith on the injury report, but like he's questionable, so you have to assume that he's going to play. There's so many aspects of this that makes me want to believe in the Rams because I've seen them play really good defense, but what I've also seen is they completely shut down their offense in the second half of games. And if you're only going to play one half of a football game, you're going to lose a lot. The Cowboys' ability to generate pressure is going to be massive. The Rams' offensive line is not shown that they've really taken any big steps forward. They had a couple of games this season where they've looked good, but the last like 3 in the second half of the game, when they're in obvious pass situations, it feels like it is falling apart as the game goes on. Like they start off strong and then it slowly deteriorates. As opposed to some teams in the NFL, the first half of the game, they start off a little slow and then they pick up their tempo as the game goes on, which is the difference between the Eagles and a lot of other teams in the NFL, right? Like in the second half of games, the Eagles are turning up the pressure on defense and they're dominating the clock with the run game. Whereas like the Rams, they kind of feel like they have to play full tilt all the time. And with the running back situation, it was a little tough for them last week with the Steelers and everything like that. We're taking a step down in defensive presence from the Cowboys, which makes me want to pick the Rams because they were able to keep it so close versus the Steelers. But the Cowboys are the more complete team overall. You know what? Fuck it, man. I'm doing it. I'm picking the Rams. I'm picking the Rams on this one just off the fact that I feel like they've played a lot of tough opponents the last couple of weeks. The Cowboys have really folded under a lot of pressure this season, and we're just getting started. And the Rams don't seem like a team that can, like I said before, offense shutting down in the second half of the games, not very encouraging, but also overall, Cowboys offense has been like semi-non-existent at points, so that's fun. Also, underrated X factor in this game. Sean McVay has the baby bump. He had his son leading up to the game, and that is worth at least a touchdown on the board and in your hearts. But yeah, for the most part, like the baby bump is like a real thing in football, and it's kind of wild. Moving on, next game, Vikings-Packers. Man, it feels like this is just a little bit too easy, right? The Packers are +1.5, so they're the dog in this one, and they're at home. Super rare situation. Kind of embarrassing. I have not seen the defensive presence I wanted to see out of the Packers to make things happen for them, but knowing the way that the Vikings have been playing, they're going to have like a couple of like stepping on banana peel type turnovers, which is always funny. They're good for at least one turnover a game, and usually that turnover is going to be a fumble, and it's bad times, right? I want to take the Vikings. I want to take the Vikings so bad in this, man, but the chaos in me really leans towards the Packers, who have not looked good in the Packers and the Broncos, very similar teams this year, where it's like there's the first quarter, and then there's like a yada 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 the fourth quarter, and then we play in the fourth quarter, right? We play really well at the back end of the games, which guess what? Don't know if you guys heard this or not. A lot of one possession games the Vikings have played this season and not won. So one of the few situations was versus the 49ers where they were able to pull that off. But their defense seems to be picking up the kind of speed and kind of tempo to understand like what they expect for them to be able to be successful. And that could be the difference maker here. The defense for the Vikings, which is, according to everybody, has quote-unquote overperformed. Anyway, Saints at Colts. This will be fun. It's Colts +1, which doesn't make any. I think it's Saints +1. Don't know why that's happening. The Saints have some kind of virus that's been going around the team, and multiple players have caught it. They've like missed practice, but I don't think it's kept anybody from being able to actually play. Weird numbers, right? We talked about how the Colts are basically undefeated versus the Texans when they're at home. The Colts have not beaten the Saints since the year 2007. Yeah, 2007, my guy. Now, I don't know how many years ago that was, but it seems like it was a long time. I'm kidding. 16 years ago. They have not beaten the Colts in a decade and a half. I will point this out. They've only played them 7 times since 2007, including that one time they played them in the Superb Owl, and Tracy Porter intercepted Reggie Wayne, who seemingly pulled up on that slant route. I keep saying that, and I have no idea why. Big thing here. 2 of the better defenses in the NFL. Remember, the Saints are a team that legitimately was like, oh, the most points you're going to get out of us is 20. The second time this season so far, they gave up more than 20 points, and that was on Thursday Night Football versus the Jaguars, right? They've generated a good chunk of pressure. They got a lot of coverage up front. Chris Olave is in a real tenuous situation. He's currently, he was booked, and I think he's being charged with reckless driving. And yeah, man, there's a lot of weird aspects about the Saints. I'm gonna point this out. They throw, and we've mentioned it before, almost every single week. Ever since Alvin Kamara has come back, they don't throw anything that's beyond 5 yards. The DBs for the Colts have looked really good, but you know who's looked really especially good out of all the defensive players in terms of their presence? That would be Zaire Franklin, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not familiar with Zaire, Zaire is currently leading the NFL in tackles, and he tends to hang out in the same areas that Alvin Kamara does. So taking away the best weapon the Saints have available to them is more than likely going to give me the lean with the Colts, who are the better overall team in terms of their structure as a team. It's pretty easy to pick against the Saints, who have not looked good at all. The only time they looked good is that Thursday Night Football game versus the Jaguars, and it was the worst performance the defense has had all season. So that's tough. By the way, I take back what I said about there being nobody else that they can really throw the ball to. Josh Downs emerging every single week as the second. This is the number 2 guy for the Colts. He's a little bit short, but guess what? When they throw him the ball, ain't nobody else around him. That's all that really matters, right? The Patriots are playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins are minus 9.5. That's bad. That's more than a touchdown. I think it's the biggest line this entire week, actually. I don't think there's anybody, or the Bills are playing someone. It's minus 9.5. That's big. That's big time. Also, what's big time? Allegedly, maybe, just happens, Jalen Ramsey is allegedly going to be playing in this game. According to him, he says he's not going to play until he feels absolutely great. So I guess he's going to go through warm-ups and decide like what the deal is for him on Sunday morning. And that is going to add a whole nother layer to this game that I don't think Mac Jones is going to be ready for. Even if he doesn't play, they still got like some really good defensive backs up front. I am interested to see what defensively Bill Belichick is cooked up to combat Tua Tagovailoa. I think this is the 5th or 6th time that Bill has played against Tua, and a lot of the games that they played come down to the wire, including, remember, we had week 1 of Sunday Night Football was Patriots, Dolphins, and That one was a lot closer than a lot of us suspected it was going to be, but the Dolphins came out on top in that one. The Dolphins have gone through a roller coaster of emotions since that Week 1 game, now that I think about it. Anyway, I'm going with the Dolphins on this one. I tend to lean with the more talented team when it all bears out. I understand that Bill Belichick clearly showed that he has the propensity to be able to play teams into the worst possible scenario for them. But luckily for us, the Dolphins are a team that, do you really feel like they have access to their run game is the question. But I think they can only stop so many things that the Dolphins are going to be capable of. And Bill really tends to key in on one thing that he feels like is going to be the chip in your Achilles heel, right? That kind of tears you down from the inside. By the way, weird matchup every time I see it. Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, guys who used to be in the same QB room, along with Jalen Hurts, used to be in the same QB room. Kind of wild to think about Nick Saban recruiting that well when it comes to quarterback. Insane. Insane. Really it is. I'll take the Dolphins. I expect the Dolphins defense to step up in this game because they have Jalen Phillips back, and that is going to ramp up the pressure significantly for the Dolphins. We saw that happen versus the Eagles, and the Eagles have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And they were still able to generate pressure on those guys. So, yeah. I'm excited to see what Bill cooks up, though. I can't even lie about that. Jets at Giants. The Giants are +3, so that means the Jets are the favorites in this one. As we all know, I'm a defensive guy, but I don't necessarily care for the business of believing in Zach Wilson. But that's just me. But I will point out, this is top 3 defensive lines in the NFL versus probably bottom 5. A team that literally gave up almost 20 sacks in the course of 13. No, in the gap between the Seahawks game and the Dolphins game for the Giants, they gave up 14 sacks, I believe it was. It's going to be hard. And Tyrod Taylor obviously changes how this math works out for what for what is available and like who gets the ball when they're open kind of deal. The Giants defense actually has somebody who can counterbalance their effort, and that's going to go a long way. But the Jets D-line and the kind of pressure that they generate plus the coverage behind it, it's tough for me to see an offense with Tyrod Taylor being able to just absolutely dominate. Now, I know they're going to get Saquon back. That's going to go a long way because the Giants are just a totally different team when Saquon Barkley's out there running the ball, mainly because of how big of a threat he is when you don't have a defense that's willing to run out there and pursue him. Luckily for them, they have Quincy Williams, who he loves to run. He loves to run, and he shows it. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going with the Giants for the upset, man. I feel like they're with Tyrod Taylor, it feels like they got like a totally different vibe around what they're capable of doing. The game stays relatively close, and if it comes down to like, who do you think is more clutch? Tyrod Taylor, Zach Wilson? I think the answer is clear. Headband or not for Zach Wilson, I'm taking Tyrod Taylor in the mix, as some of the youngsters would say. The Jaguars take on the Steelers. This will be interesting. The Steelers are more than likely going to key in on trying to take away Travis Etienne because, let's be real, he's been the biggest threat on the offense for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Forcing Trevor Lawrence to go out there and beat you is going to be an interesting proposition, especially considering the Steelers have a defensive back, Joey Porter Jr. I don't know if you guys heard of him or not. His dad was pretty good at football way back in the day. But I saw some stat where like he's basically given up like 7 yards and 0 yards after a catch. Insane. I'm assuming he's gonna have your boy Zay Jones out there on him, but the Jaguars got a lot of passing game weapons, and they are the better overall team. Now, Kenny Pickett has been showing up in the second half of some of these games. This is going to be one of the biggest tests defensively for, in terms of like actual individual skill players, like with George Pickens and Deontay Johnson out there for the Steelers. They gotta figure this out. But I'm going to go with the Jaguars on this one out of straight up faith that they are the more balanced team up front and that they can win in a multitude of ways. They've gone up against they've gone up against a lot of high quality teams who have great individual offensive players, and they've come out on top when it's all said and done. By the way, Steelers 2.5 home dog according to, I think this is ESPN when I got it from. Anyway, but yeah, the Jags are multi, as the bigwigs would say. The Falcons take on the Titans. Ryan Tannehill is out and Mayo Boy is in, aka Will Levis. Looks like he's about to get his first start in the NFL. That'll be fun, especially considering this Falcons game is very winnable. They are nasty on defense, but their offense keeps everybody that they play in the game. They are 29th in points overall this season so far, while being 8th in rushing. So that's fun. That's fun for all the people who believe in run the damn ball. Falcons-Titans, probably going to be a pretty low-scoring affair. Let's be real. I will say this. Traylon Burks is back from an ankle injury. I think ankle or knee injury that held him out, I think, for 3 games. Crazy, man. Don't know what the relationship between Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins is, but if he's a smart guy, just throw it up in the general vicinity and D-Hop will take care of the rest. You know what I mean? The Falcons, coming off a game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a pretty good defense overall, right? The Titans defense has been a little suspect. When they get their pressure going, that they're a team that's more dependent upon their pressure to be successful than their coverage up front, right? Once they get their pressure going, that's when they take on a whole new shade as a team. Now, is that going to affect Desmond Ridder? Oh, yeah. It's going to affect Desmond Ridder. We've seen that already. Bijan Robinson supposedly is back for this game, so having Bijan and Tyler Algier back is going to mean that we're about to see a lot of running in this one. Shout out to, 3 of the best running backs in the NFL, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, and Derrick Henry, all out there together. Plus Deontay Foreman's on the Bears. Tajay Spears, there we go. That's the guy I'm thinking of. Tajay Spears has had a couple of big runs this season, so I want to lean on the Falcons just because the Falcons, while they do have a young quarterback in, they are very familiar with their young quarterback as opposed to what the Titans got going on with Will Levis. So hopefully Will is a spirited youngster like we saw he was at Kentucky, when we saw he's a spirited guy and he's willing to sling it out there. Because if there was ever a time that you could just throw that thing out there and not get in trouble for it, what they gonna do? Put in Malik Willis? Moving on. Eagles at Commanders. I feel like the answer is... By the way, I've taken the Falcons in that last game, even though I do like the Titans a little bit on the action. Somebody went up and dug up the stats of the Falcons versus the Oilers, and the Falcons have I think they've only lost twice to the Oilers in the history of the times that they've played each other or something like that. That was kind of funny because the Titans are wearing their Oilers uniforms this weekend. So I've been pre-mad since Monday. About that, one of the greatest travesties in all of the NFL. The Eagles at the Commanders. Commanders +7. Bad news. This is the second time they've played each other already, right? Last time we saw Emmanuel Forbes kind of get bullied a little bit by A.J. Brown. Wonder if they're going to give him another opportunity versus A.J. Brown, because it felt like there was a good chunk of the game where AJ just couldn't get open, and then all of a sudden he started making big catch after big catch. So that'll be interesting. This is going to be one of the better tests for the offensive line for the Eagles, because whether people know this or not, the Commanders have one of the better D-lines up front in terms of run defense and generating pressure in the NFL. They have 2 of the better defensive tackles and a couple of ends that do a pretty good job. That, I think, is the X factor in this one. Now, do I want to sit here and make it easy and be like, I'm going to take the Eagles because the Eagles play football good? Yeah, I do see the world where the Commanders win because, one, divisional opponent overall, and it's tough to sit there and be like, yep, a sweep. I can see that. Totally reasonable. No questions asked whatsoever. But it's hard for me to deny what I see out there on the football field as the Eagles being what looks to be the second best team in the NFL, behind the Chiefs. But yeah, I'll take the Eagles. Kevin Byard's debut as a Eagle, probably going to go pretty well for him. He's really good at football, and now he's got a bunch of other teammates who are also really good at football around him. The Browns are taking on the Seahawks. You already know. You know what time it is, baby. This is probably going to be bad news for the Seahawks. Geno Smith has been a little too generous with the football, to be honest with you. They're coming off a week where the Seahawks as an offense turned the ball over 3 times versus the Arizona Cardinals and allowed them to stay in a game that they... not on paper, on paper and on the field, when you like watched the game, the Seahawks clearly were the better team. Plus, it felt like they should be up by like 3 touchdowns, and it felt like with the way the defense was playing, they couldn't find any openings. Like the Cardinals couldn't find any openings outside of, we're going to run our quarterback and hopefully he can get to the edge fast enough before your linebacker does. And that stopped working in the second half of the game. Now, with the Browns, we've already seen on multiple occasions PJ Walker does something for this offense that Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson couldn't do. Now, Jacoby Brissett was out there getting the ball up and down the field, just not as fast as PJ Walker does. They put up 39 points last week, guys, and that was with all the turnovers that they had generated as well. Now, do I believe the Seahawks are just going to come in here and have a shit ton of turnovers and the Browns are going to steamroll them? No. I do believe at some point there's going to be a Seahawks turnover, but I do have a lot more faith in the Seahawks offense than I would against the Browns offense in comparison to what we see on the defense. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say that the Seahawks defense and the Browns defense are comparable to each other. That would be laughable and not true in any way, shape, or form. But it would be hilarious. It actually would make no sense whatsoever. The Seahawks have shown a lot of weakness. They're also down one of their slot corners in Kobe Bryant now. But the Browns' overall defensive presence can only go so far, man. And I think the Seahawks got a lot more balance than what the Colts had last week. So it will be a massive upset for the Seahawks to get that dub because the Browns, if what we've seen with PJ Walker is like for real, yeah, they got a different kind of problem. They got a different set of problems, to be honest with you. So, yeah. Anyway, by the way, don't forget, Frank Clark signed with the Seahawks this week. Don't know how much of a difference that's going to make, but we've seen, I've talked about this, there's been like this rotating cast of like who's the best defensive lineman on the Seahawks every single week, and last week it was Jaron Reed at the defensive tackle position. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? By the way, feel like we don't talk about this enough. Jerome Ford, starting running back for the Cleveland Browns, just seamlessly stepped in for Nick Chubb. Like he's been here the whole time. Kind of wild. That's all I really wanted to say. Ravens at Cardinals. So this is Cardinals plus 9.5, which means that at home, another home dog. By the way, another home dog when it's all said and done. I think that's like the 4th or 5th one this week. The Ravens take on the Cardinals. We just came off a week where we saw the Ravens literally show the perfect form of their offense. And it's kind of hard, like you can't picture a world, even though it was like 2 weeks ago when the Ravens couldn't move the ball up and down the field, right? The Cardinals defense is going to take a massive hit. They don't have Kevin Strong Jr. in this game. They've already lost Zach Ertz. They've lost James Conner. And the big mystery around this game is whether or not this is going to be Kyler Murray's return as starting quarterback for the Cardinals. Now, they said he doesn't have an injury designation. He doesn't know if he's going to play. His coaches said he doesn't know if he's going to play. And at some point, they got to reveal it. And if you're the Ravens, I think what you take away from this whole situation is like I don't expect the Ravens offense to have any problems versus the Cardinals defense based off what I've seen. Now, I expect the Ravens defense. Like, this is one of those situations where I can see the Ravens defense pulling off a shutout. And I know that's saying a lot and it's mean, but it's true. Like the Cardinals have been slowly deteriorating due to injury as the season has gone on. Now, I can see the Ravens defense getting their first shutout, and they don't even have Brandon Stevens in this game. So it would be pretty impressive based off of what we saw versus the Detroit Lions and what we know about the Cardinals so far this season. They can run the ball pretty well, but there seems to be like some aversion to using their running backs in a pretty conventional manner. But I guess if you're a Cardinals team that nobody expects you to win, rookie head coach, get weird. That's the only way you're going to beat teams, right? Get weird, bro. And they've gotten weird. I will say that. It'd be interesting to see if Kyler plays in this one, knowing how good Odafe Oweh coming back as well. Knowing how good the Ravens defense is, getting them out there and kind of feeding them to the wolves in terms of like, hey man, you're 100% going to have to run at full speed at some point, multiple points more than likely throughout the course of this game. I take the Ravens. Pretty easy pick for me. I like the Ravens as a football team overall, and it's tough for me to see a world where even if the Ravens turn the ball over, that the Cardinals offense that we've seen the last couple of weeks can take advantage of it. Now, they've been able to move the ball up and down the field, but a lot of teams, they become a different beast when they get into the red zone, and that's what we've been seeing the product of. So the Chiefs are at the Broncos. The Broncos are +7 in this game, so the Chiefs are -7. And the Chiefs are going for their 17th straight win over the Broncos. Now, you tell me, do you think the Broncos that you've seen so far this season, who, by the way, I think I know what this is going to come down to. The Broncos defense has been pretty potent at times, but they have not been consistently ridiculous like we've expected in years past. Now, the Broncos defense has had... they've had a lot of games where they've been able to generate pressure on quarterbacks. We've seen multiple times where a lot of teams have tried to generate pressure. Unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you don't have the elite level pass rushers on both ends to be able to generate pressure on Patrick Mahomes, especially when he has the I always have the right answer type receiver, aka Travis Kelce. The main reason I don't believe the Broncos can be in this one is because the Chiefs' front seven has been pretty on point vast majority of the season so far. And what I'm talking about is we've recently seen, very similar to what the Jets have been going through, they have discovered that they can reduce the number of pass attempts, and that's their whole goal, reduce the number of pass attempts as much as possible to increase the overall success of the offense. They've got McLaughlin and they've got Javonte Williams, who looked really good last week in terms of keeping the Broncos competitive in the game. That is definitely something that they're going to make more consistent throughout this one. They got a couple of good catches from Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, but outside of that, like we mentioned before, kind of in the same vein of the Packers, where it's like there's the first quarter, there's a yada, 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 and then the fourth quarter happens, and that's when we play again, right? That's when we start playing offense again. Can't do that. Can't take off quarters. And can't take off quarters versus the Chiefs. And there's so many examples of Russell Wilson has semi lost his touch as a passer. And that's the most difficult thing to kind of wrap your brain around. But when you watch him play, he can't feather the ball in on routes that are headed towards the sideline. Like, he has a tough time threading to the back of the end zone. And I don't know what that is, man. I don't know how you go your whole life having that and then all of a sudden don't have it. But that is happening. That is happening to Russell Wilson in real time. But this game's going to be about Willie Gay and Drew Tranquill because Nick Bolton has dislocated his wrist. He's going to have surgery to put it back. I mean, he already has had surgery. But Drew Tranquill is going to be the guy that steps in. Willie Gay, who's been really good for the last couple of years. And now it seems like he's going to have to step up even more in this one. So Drew Tranquill, who used to play for the Chargers, last week we talked about how he got basically the game-winning sack versus the Chargers, the team that he used to play for, and got the win for the Chiefs. Yeah, the pressure and the run defense. The Chiefs have shown that they have the capability of generating both. They're probably going to beat the Broncos pretty handedly in this one. My bad. Got to highlight that one for myself. By the way, I'm highlighting them as I go along. That's what the clicking noise is, so that I can go back later and know which ones I picked. Because there's been multiple times where I'm like, oh, I pick a different team than I put in my app, and then I go back and listen to the show, and I'm like, oh man, I said the wrong team, or I picked the wrong team in comparison to what I selected. So, moving on. By the way, completely blew past the 2-hour mark here. 2 hours and 5 minutes. Sorry, guys. I lied. We're almost done, though. Bengals at 49ers. 49ers -4 in this one. This is bad O-line from the Bengals. Quote-unquote bad. Poor offensive line play from the Bengals. Great defensive line presence from the 49ers. Now, it has dropped off a cliff a little bit this past week. What do you think is going to happen, though? We're looking at a game where both teams are going to have their quarterbacks under pressure, right? Because the Bengals are, I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, they're pretty damn good at getting at the quarterback too. With Trey Hendrickson and with Sam Hubbard up front. They also got DJ Reader, who's one of the best run stoppers in the NFL. That's probably going to be a problem for Christian McCaffrey up front. And they've shown that they have magically rebuilt their entire secondary almost seamlessly with Daxton Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt at the cornerback position. So this is going to be another tough showing for Brock Purdy in this one. This is 3 weeks in a row where he's played the top. He's played the Browns, arguably number one defense in the NFL. He's played the Vikings, a team that is overperforming defensively up front, and then now he's going to have to go up against a Bengals defense that is considered top 10 in the NFL. And when it comes down to the playoff, like, let's be real, the Bengals are a team that get better. Like, defensively, they've gotten better as the season has gone on. They've been one of the few consistent bastions for the Bengals throughout whatever is happening. The defense always plays well. And it's because they've got a lot of really good players at multiple positions. So expect another rough game from Brock Purdy. I would not say don't expect. I feel like the coaching advantage goes to Kyle Shanahan in this one. But if it comes down to a close game, which I believe it will because of the defensive nature of both of these teams, if it comes down to a close game, who you got? Joe Burrow or Brock Purdy / Christian McCaffrey? Because if it comes down to a close game, they're probably going to try and run this thing out. But the 49ers being back at full strength versus the Bengals, it's a tough look because both of these teams have like glaring issues right now. Now, there's nothing to say that Brock Purdy doesn't go into this game and he starts looking like the Brock Purdy. He makes the adjustments because you don't get to the point where Brock is without being able to make adjustments to what teams are doing to counteract a lot of the stuff that you utilize. There's some the dagger concept that Kyle Shanahan uses in every iteration of his offense he's ever made, right? That is apparently something that teams are keying in on and trying to take away. Understandable. Now, what's Brock Purdy going to do? Because he hasn't run dagger concepts like his entire time in the NFL. He's used other skill sets and other route combinations to be successful and made more than one or two reads in a single play. Now, with the Bengals, they clearly have the X factor at the quarterback position. I feel like in a chaotic fashion, even though the 49ers are the better team top to bottom, I feel like the 49ers right now, a little bit in flux, and I picked the Bengals. I take the Bengals for the upset on this one, man. I know it's easy to hop off the 49ers bandwagon, but I think it's just in this situation right now, the Bengals have shown they are nasty on defense up front. And it's not just in terms of like generating pressure on quarterbacks. It's not just in terms of pass coverage. Like they play really good run defense too. And that's one of the few times the 49ers are going to face off against a defense that does almost everything at a really high level. So, yeah. Bears at Chargers. This is Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football? This is Monday Night Football. Hold on, let me check because I think there's a game that's not on here. I'm pretty sure this is Sunday Night Football because in my group chat somebody was like, yo, what the fuck is this Sunday Night Football game? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is because I think the Raiders are playing somebody that they are going to get smacked by on Monday Night Football. So, scrolling. Yep, Monday the Raiders are playing the Lions. So, we can make this one real quick. Chargers, they do not have Justin Fields. Tyler Bagent is going to be starting quarterback again. Tyler was the epitome of a game manager in the last time that we saw him. Have to wonder, dude was able to get 30 points on the scoreboard, right? A lot of questions swirling around Justin Herbert. I think it's BS. I think in this game we're going to see the difference maker is going to be the Chargers, right? They have the X factor at the quarterback position. Plus, I think a lot of people are just not talking about it as much because it's easier to just like shit on Justin Herbert. Their run game has like legitimately emerged for the first time since Justin Herbert has been there. And when Austin Eckler is not in the game, they essentially never had a run game. And now Joshua Kelly's looking pretty good, man. Don't know what Austin's situation is going to be. We all saw that he re-injured himself throughout in that game versus the Chiefs last week. But I still have faith in the Chargers, in particular the pressure generating situation with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I think that is going to be a massive difference in this one. Now, Max Crosby, very good. Max Crosby and the Raiders played versus Tyler Bagent in his first matchup. But when the pressure's coming from both sides and they got good coverage down the field with an elite corner like Asante Samuels Jr., I think it spells bad news for a backup quarterback, like really bad news, but only time will tell. I'm going with the Chargers just because, one, I'm a bigger fan of the Chargers than I am of the Bears, but basically everything I've seen out of the Chargers is that they have like this thing where they kind of play up and down the competition. Like you're talking about a team that was in a close game versus the Raiders, but then was also in a close game versus the Chiefs, right? When the Chiefs are like going full tilt. And like I said before, that 31-17 score, highly deceptive. It was 24-17 with like 4 minutes left in that game. So it was a one-possession game with 4 minutes left, and the Chargers couldn't get anything going in the second half of that game. So don't think the Bears defense is anywhere near the caliber of the Chiefs. Only, I guess we'll see. I'll be thoroughly surprised if they can figure it out versus the Chargers. But we've seen the Chargers look extremely powerful throughout the course of this season, especially like Keenan Allen has not missed a beat, and it's kind of wild. Raiders versus Lions. This one, cut and dry for me. The Lions' run game, I think, is going to make a massive difference in this one because they have Montgomery coming back this week, and that's good. I think that's the difference maker in this one to create the variable nature of what their offense is. Right, like when it felt like part of why the Ravens played so well against the Lions is because the Lions get kind of predictable. When they're going to pass, it's kind of obvious, and when they're going to run, it's kind of obvious as well. They just have guys who can make the plays correct. Now, what I am concerned about is the Lions' defensive presence up front. They've already, like I mentioned before, at the top or towards the top of this segment, they've lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's not CD Deuce yet. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that's going to make a massive difference. They're also banking on Jimmy Garoppolo to come back and play in this game. And I think the Lions just set a pace on offense that is just too fast for the Raiders to keep up with. The Raiders have proven time and time again they are a 17 points per game kind of team. They are one of the, if not the worst offenses in the NFL. I can't think of a worse offense other than like what the Panthers are putting out there right now. And part of what the Panthers issue is like they just don't have any pass catchers they can depend on to go out there and make something happen, man. That's the biggest issue for them. Anyway, that's all I got, man. That's all you got too. That's all you're gonna get out of this show. I'm going with the Lions on Monday Night Football, and we'll see how I feel by the time we get around to it because man, it depends on how crazy this week gets. Last week was a bloodbath for pretty much everybody involved. Like I said, I got 3 games right on the on my straight up picks, on my money line picks, and on my spread picks, and apparently that helped me go up in my percentile in the ESPN Pick'em League across like all of the possible public entries, and that's a little disturbing. A lot of money was made last week for Vegas. Hopefully we're not going to do it again, man. Hopefully we're going out here, we getting this cashola and making it happen. Don't forget, hydrate, wash your hands, wash your ass, do good, be nice to people, and most importantly, go home, Roger.